Welcome to Your Wealth and Real Talk Solana Beach with my co-host,
Karen Casino.
And myself, Ryan White. Today, we're talking about planning. Planning your life, planning your marriage, planning your estate, and planning your investments. But before we get started, we're going to show you a little clip about the Business Expo coming at the Loma Santa Fe Country Club. Here it is. Ryan White here with my co-host,
Karen Casino.
We are at the Loma Santa Fe Country Club here with the Executive Director of the Solana Beach Chamber of Commerce, Miriam Henson. She's here to tell us about the Solana Beach Chamber's Business Expo taking place here, again at the Loma Santa Fe Country Club, in just a few days.
Thank you so much. We're excited to be having our 8th annual Solana Beach Business Expo here at the pool at the Loma Santa Fe Country Club. It'll be on Wednesday night, September 26th from 5 to 7 p.m. We have about 50 different businesses. We have music, raffles, and a lot of information. About 400 people will come to attend this event, so we're very excited and looking forward to it.
Great. So if I am attending the Business Expo, what can I expect? I'll walk through, and will the businesses have samples and brochures and...
Yes, it's free to attend, and the businesses will have information to hand out about their businesses, their services. Some of them will have items to sell. The restaurants will bring samples for people to try. So all the food and samples are free. So we're excited to have everyone come check out the businesses and get to know what's going on around Solana Beach.
Great, and I hear there's a raffle. I'm excited about that.
There is. We have a great raffle. We have a lot of free raffles, but our big one is the for the
7 best restaurants in Solana Beach, right?
Yeah, so 7 best restaurants is dining out for 2 people for 7 nights in Solana Beach. Mm-hmm. So the winner will win all 7 of
you get all 7?
All 7
wow.
of the restaurants.
Oh, wow.
Yes, so they're valued from $50 to $150 at each restaurant.
How much is the ticket?
It's only $10.
Wow.
$10.
Well, you should come just for that, right?
I know, it'll be worth it just for that. Yeah.
And
so somebody's going to eat very well.
Now, I know the deadline was September 1st for businesses to sign up to actually be there, but there are a few extra spots still available, right?
Yes, we do have some more spots for businesses to attend. Again, it's free for all Solana Beach Chamber of Commerce members.
Great.
To participate.
Great.
And tell us again the day and time?
It'll be September 26th from 5 to 7 p.m.
5 to 7. And for more information, you can go to the website, solanabeachchamber.com. That's the website, solanabeachchamber.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Miriam.
Thank you.
See you there.
See you.
For those of you who don't know, this is racquetball, pickleball, which is different than tennis, and you can find out more information how that is Woody Yoakum.
All right, today we're going to focus on planning your life. We're going to talk about planning, well, for marriage and your estate. And as we mentioned, we have with us today Amanda Singer and Jen Segura. They are both family law mediators. Their website is sdfmc.com. That is San Diego Family Mediation Center, San Diego Family Mediation Center, sdfmc.com. We're going to start by talking about prenuptial agreements.
Exciting topic.
Exciting topic. Well, could be.
It is. I think it is.
Okay.
I do. So just in general about what they are, I mean, a prenuptial agreement is a contract or an agreement before you get married. Okay. So lays out kind of how you want to do things when you get married. And what people don't really realize is if you don't have a prenup, you do. You have the family code of laws of state of California. So the idea being that in a prenuptial agreement, you want to agree to something different if you were to get divorced or something were to happen.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Write it up ahead of time.
Yes. So you're doing it before you get married. There's a number of different requirements by law of what has to go into a prenup and how it has to be done. But generally, unless something is void against public policy, you can have a lot of different things in it.
Well, I'll throw a little curveball here. What did Barry Bonds do with respect to prenup? Did he do something like the last minute or something like that? What did he do?
Yeah, so that's actually one of the requirements in California is the 7 days before the wedding. That is the Barry Bonds case because he presented, God, you're making me remember my law school cases. He presented a prenup. You don't? Yeah, he presented a prenup to his almost wife. I think it was about a day before the wedding.
I don't think it was in her language either.
Yeah, in addition to that, English was not her first language.
Yeah.
And so that was the whole question is when they were going to get divorced, was the prenup valid?
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, Amanda and Jen here with, again, San Diego Family Mediation. Now, obviously, with a name like that, you two do primarily family mediations. Is that right?
Correct.
What, how does that work, and how do people work together to get a prenuptial agreement in place?
Yeah, so the way that we do our premarital mediation and prenuptial agreements is to have the couple work together. The idea being that most of the time, if one person wants a prenup, they're going to one attorney, they're just meeting with that attorney individually, they're drafting up an agreement, and then they're giving it to their soon-to-be spouse. But there's not communication between the two together. So what we do is, as a mediator, would sit down with both of the future spouses and have a full conversation around what are the assets and debts that they have currently, talk about their income, talk about their plans for the future, whether that's around property or working, or even children, or all of that. So really we look at it as, open lines of communication before they get married. And, drafting a prenup can be part of that, but making sure really that they're talking about what they're doing as a couple.
And that's kind of resonated with me about what you're doing, because when I walked in, you two both said to me, where's your prenup, Ryan? And I responded, apparently the normal man response, I had nothing. But beyond, whether a monetary prenup, but having the conversation about finances and staying home is a really big outcome, even if there aren't stuff to protect, and you guys have always advocated for that.
Yeah, well, and I think that, kind of like you said, I didn't have anything, why would I have one? I think that was kind of, people were getting married younger, and so a lot of times when people were getting married, they didn't have much, but now people are getting married later in life, and they may have businesses and property and a lot more when they get married, or they're on their second or third marriage.
Right.
And there's that to deal with as well. So, I think it's become more of an open conversation, and there's also not the kind of, I think the preconceived notion about prenups is if you ask for one, you don't trust the other person.
Of course.
And we're trying to kind of break that, because the idea shouldn't be that's what it is. The idea should be you should have all these conversations before you get married, and people aren't having them.
Well, and they can be a two-sided street as well. It's not just a rich person asking a person that's marrying them to sign off on their wealth. It can be something like, I'm a very wealthy person, I have a family trust, I'm never going to work a day in my life, so therefore we're not going to create any community property while we're married. You get divorced 20 years later, there's nothing there for that person. So it actually can be a protection to the person coming into the marriage. And this is the discussion you have is, hey, I'm not planning to work, and all of my money is inherited money. And so maybe there's some money set aside for the person. Or you've seen kind of the vesting, if we're married 5 years, this happens, we're married,
Yep, especially with the spousal support too, right? Like people talk about, is the only thing having to do with waiving spousal support. No, it's not, but you can talk about it. So if you're married for X amount of time, or if somebody decides not to work, maybe there is support, but difference based on, if you're working and self-supporting versus not. So yeah, definitely a lot that can go into a prenup. There's not like a one-size-fits-all.
Right. And one of the requirements for a prenup, both of you will tell your clients this, is that they have to let an attorney look at it before they sign it, right? That's what happened in the Barry Bonds cases. There was no
attorney review.
Review.
Each individually have an attorney.
Each individually, and those individual attorneys will tell you some of the things that should be in there. And again, this is a two-way street. It doesn't have to be a one-way street. And there could be things put in there that can be helpful to both parties.
Yeah, there should be. Really, at the end of the day, like the prenup should have something that they both want, because it should be that.
We're talking with Amanda Singer and Jen Segura. They are both family law mediators. The website is sdfmc.com. sdfmc.com, San Diego Family Mediation Center. So ladies, let's say I'm, eventually meet the person of my dreams, right? I should say it's hypothetical, because of course I already have. But I meet the person of my dreams, right? And we fall in love, and we take this incredibly romantic step of, in addition to trying the cake and checking out the caterer, we're going to go meet with our family law mediators to dial in our prenuptial agreement. Let's say we have an agreement, two of us. What's the next step?
So you've already, once we've put the agreement together, or you guys know what you want? Sorry.
Well, it would be one, I would say very similar, deciding what we want, and then we're going to turn that over to you.
Yes. So deciding what you want, sometimes people come in with ideas, and then we've got lists of kind of questions to ask and things that I think people just don't think about sometimes, right? Like talking about how you spend money, or talking about how you're going to, who's going to make money, different things like that. And then we draft the agreement, and that's where then the attorneys come into play. If we are drafting a prenup, we refer them out so that they each have an individual attorney.
Yeah.
Got it. Well, I'm kind of setting you up here with a softball, Jen, but do you feel it's important for people to discuss their current financial situation and future financial plans?
Well, that kind of comes into, there could be people that want to get married that don't want to actually have a prenup, but it doesn't mean that the conversation shouldn't be had anyways. So, talking about things like what are each of your spending habits? What are each of your saving habits? What does your current credit look like? What is your debt look like? Are you, if it's your first marriage, and are you guys anticipating going to grad school or something? What do you foresee your life looking like? Are we going to have kids? Are we going to have more than one kid? Is one of us going to stay home? People get into marriages and they don't even talk about these things.
It's a lot of talking.
It is a lot of talking.
A lot.
It is. But in addition to that, and Karen, with what you do, imagine you get divorced at 14, 15 years after you've gotten married.
Imagine.
And there's so much money that goes into tracing back to say, okay, I had this separate property, and I had this 401k before marriage, or I had an inheritance that I used to buy this house. People spend so much money on forensic accounting to trace this money back to where, my God, if they just had a conversation and you just print out that statement of the 401k, around the date of marriage, what was that money that went into the house? Memorialize this stuff, put it in a folder, and put it in your safe. And if the time ever comes, you can pull that file out and be like, here, this is where I was when I started. This is where you were when we started, and save the. Sorry, then we might be taking money out of your pocket.
It's
though.
okay.
But it's just take a snapshot. Where are we when we start? And that helps so much later if you do end up in that situation, unfortunately. But at least you're there, and you're not having to say, no, I swear I had $100,000 in my 401k. Because 401ks and they don't keep years and years and years worth of documentation. All they're responsible for is keeping today. What is your value today? So they might not have 10 years ago.
And it's easier now that things are online, but
Sure.
when we have clients where they're looking for statements from 20 years ago that weren't online.
Right.
Absolutely. So, and just little things like having children. Hopefully people have those conversations, but if you don't, and then you're 10 years in and you're like, wait, what do you mean you don't want children? That can break up a marriage. It does break up marriages.
We're talking with Jen Segura and Amanda Singer. They are family law mediators with San Diego Family Mediation Center, sdfmc.com, sdfmc.com. So let's say that I'm out there listening, and it is only now that I have discovered, and it's potentially too late because I'm already married, it is only now that I've discovered I should have some kind of agreement. I would assume that prenuptial is probably too late for that. What other options are out there for me?
So there's something called a postnuptial agreement that is basically taking what could have happened in a prenup and doing it post getting married. Now, you do face risks there because they're not quite as enforceable.
Not as enforceable.
Yeah, they're definitely not as.
There's not the same, the family code is very specific on what you have to do for a prenup. Like we talked about with attorneys, we talked about 7 days. There's certain things that have to go into it. It's not the same with postnups. And so kind of the general accepted way is doing the same as a prenup, requiring individual attorneys and doing certain things like that. But it's just, there's less, I think there's also less case law around it.
Yeah. So, yes, it's better to do that than nothing, but you are still facing the risk of maybe it being upheld and maybe it not. But I think even more than having something written that you're hoping someday a judge is going to allow you to enforce is, again, having the conversations. Like, I mean, if someone was going to do a postnup, typically it's because something's not going so
Right,
well.
I wouldn't think that it's
you wouldn't
all
do it
roses
if everything's
and-
great.
Right.
But so like we do something called marital mediation. So instead of people coming in to, get counseling from a therapist, they would come in and we would use mediation tools in order to try to save the marriage. So in that case, we're writing down things like what are you agreeing to do as your part to save this marriage, and what are you agreeing to do to save this marriage? And not that like you're going to go back and be like, you said you'd take the trash out. But it is kind of like, okay, these are the things you said you'd do, because 2 years later, the person's like, I didn't say that. Well, no, you did. And then you signed it and you said you'd do this. And then it's also, I think, a benefit to be able to show people what would a divorce look like. If you do go down this road and you aren't able to save the marriage, what is this going to look like? And sometimes that's enough to scare people to realize that
Grass isn't greener, right?
Exactly.
Or may not be greener.
Yep.
May not be
Exactly.
greener.
It's the sabotaging the divorce fantasy. Like there's not.
That's an interesting way to put that. And I would imagine that is potentially pretty compelling sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. To be a single parent living in San Diego, you can't move because your kids are here. And so now you have to support yourself here. You have to go to work. You have your child. You have to share your child. There's all these things that go into it that maybe after you see what it's going to look like or how much money you're going to be spending in support, that might help you to, I don't know, work a little harder on the marriage.
It's an interesting concept, the postnup. What other things have you seen in a postnup that have worked to save a marriage, help a marriage?
I think a lot of it's financial.
Yeah.
Because, one of the
Spending habits,
the main
yes.
reasons people get divorced have to do around finances. So if you can kind of sometimes curtail the spending habits or somehow divide up so that they've divided some of their money already and they feel more kind of control over what happens going forward, because they know that if their spouse does spend, they still have their funds there. So I think that's been a big part of it.
Pulling people in to where if one spouse has no idea about the finances, sitting down and saying, okay, we're going to have these conversations about money, and we're not going to keep you in the dark anymore. We're going to let you know, here's our investments, here's what we own, here's what we owe, and kind of getting both parties to participate in that conversation rather than it just being one party.
So how do we get caps put in mine on Marshalls and Home Goods expenditures? I need to work that in so that those are.
But Home Goods is such a good store.
We don't.
Oh, and that's the problem. It's 3
We don't.
truckloads come back with stuff for it's like $4.
Problem?
We don't.
There's nothing we can do to help you.
Nothing you can.
You're a lost cause.
We've been talking to Jen Segura and Amanda Singer. Ladies, thank you both very much. They are family law mediators with San Diego Family Mediation Center. Their website is sdfmc.com. That's the website, sdfmc.com.
Thank you. So Ryan, I've been reading. I'm a CPA that does forensic accounting, and I see a lot of real estate issues in the divorces I work on, and I'm hearing some chatter about the fact that the real estate market is either starting to go down or is about to go down. Is that kind of what you're thinking or seeing yourself?
In that regard, you're not the first person to have mentioned that, and in some ways that becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? The more people that think that it's going to happen, the more commonly it does. I'm resistant to the fact that the real estate market is going to go down. However, I very much feel that the massive gains that we've seen in, let's say 5 to 8% over the last few years, that's going to continue. I think we'll see a more realistic gain of 2 to 3% going forward, although I am hearing more people discussing homes coming out of escrow and the difficulty it may be to finding a buyer. I think we're in a marketplace where the sellers really could pick their price point, and that's shifting a little bit. We're not to a buyer's market yet, and I don't really expect that there's going to be a bubble to burst, but I think we're going to see a slowdown in the game and maybe a more even keel level market in the next 2 or 3 years.
Interesting. Well, we'll check in with you again
Okay.
soon.
Okay.
So we've been talking about planning for your marriage. Now we are going to be talking about a different type of planning. We're going to be talking about planning for your investments and planning for your retirement and ultimately the point in time when assets transfer to your beneficiaries and your heirs. Joining us is Alan Trim. and he is a vice president with Blue Summit Wealth Management. His website is bluesummitwealth.com, bluesummitwealth.com. And Adam Sherry, he is an estate and trust attorney with the law offices of Nancy Spector. His website is Nancy Spector, S-P-E-C-T-O-R, nancyspector.net. We're going to start with you, Alan. We're going to talk a little bit about what you do. You're a certified financial planner as well as a CPA. So tell us what does a certified financial planner do to help people with their their investments and their finances?
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully everyone is writing down their financial goals and making a plan for that, right?
Daily, right?
Okay,
Yeah, for
good,
sure.
good. So once you get to about $200,000 in investable assets, we think it's probably good to start hiring a professional to help you with that. That sounds like a lot of money. It is a lot of money, but if you're working at a private company or a corporation and you're saving every year, that money's going to add up. Also, we work with small business owners that want to set up a retirement plan for themselves or their employees. They see they're hiring these employees, it brings them a lot of joy. That's in the present. They want to help these people in the future. These are all cases where you might want to go talk to a CFP like ourselves. The main thing we do is help people understand what their financial goals are and then make a plan to get to those goals 10, 20, 30 years out.
When you say financial goals, what do you mean by that? Is it I want to have saved X number of dollars by this point, or I want to what
That's a great
should our
question.
goals that we're writing down every
Yeah.
day
What
should our
look
goals be?
like?
Absolutely, and that's great because sometimes we get into the weeds of dollars and I need X by X. What you really want to say is, I'd like to retire when I'm 60 years old, and I'd like to take 2 vacations a year, one of those being outside of the country. I'd like to spend enough or save enough to spend 50% of each of my kids' college tuition. I'd like to leave X to all of my grandkids. Those are the types of goals that I'm talking about. We translate that into what do you need to save, by when, and what do you have now, so therefore what do you need to add to that pot every year.
Good.
We're talking with Alan Trim, who's a vice president at Blue Summit Wealth Management. Their website is bluesummitwealth.com, bluesummitwealth.com. So kind of the process works that we bring to you our written goals, or maybe
We
not.
can tease those out together.
Maybe not written, or maybe not. We haven't even thought about it.
Exactly.
But yeah, we sit with you and we say, what should our goals be, or what's important to me?
Yeah.
And where do I want to be in a few years, and what kind of work do I do, and how am I able to earn money? So how do you translate that into a financial plan? Like, what does a financial plan look like?
Great question. So understanding your goals is the first part, and then deciding, okay, how detailed of a financial plan do you need? If you have, a very modest lifestyle and plenty of money, then you don't really need a detailed financial plan. Other people might be cutting it closer, and we can run Monte Carlo simulations, thousands of simulations, depending on what is the market going to do, what is inflation going to do, and tell you, okay, you need to save $350 a month for the next 15 years. Anywhere on that spectrum, that can be what a plan looks like. Then we help implement that plan.
How do you help implement the plan?
Great question, because a lot of people think what financial advisors do is just take the money and invest it in stocks and bonds and mutual funds. I consider that a tool to help us finish the plan and implement it. So the how is the investment. And what's unique about Blue Summit is we actually do all of that portfolio management in-house. So I started with Blue Summit about 9 years ago, and over the last 6 years we've developed in-house models so that we can take those assets and decide what we want the clients to be invested in. And each situation for each client is unique, and we're able to understand them very personally and then implement those investments.
So does it involve more than just stock and bonds and investment accounts? Do you have more products that are different than that?
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit more about the stocks and bonds we do, because Blue Summit's a little unique there. All of our investments are socially responsible investments. And it's great that that's becoming very popular these days. Big banks are starting to do that, and that's great for the world and great for our society. It aligns with our values. But we've been doing that for over 2 decades, Blue Summit has. So that's really kind of key to understanding what we do for our clients. The other thing that we do is work with outside experts like yourself with CPAs, real estate agents like Ryan, and estate attorneys like Adam. So when people come to us with questions, they don't say, excuse me, I need a trust so that my grandkids will receive X amount of dollars. They say, you know, I'd like to make sure my grandkids are safe and they're receiving these assets and they might not be a beneficiary on an IRA. That cues us to talk to experts like Adam. If they have tax questions, we talk to experts like yourself, CPAs, and also when people come to us and say, you know, I want to move into a retirement home, I've had this home, it's 3 stories and I don't like walking up the steps, well then we might talk to someone like Ryan and kind of quarterback that situation.
We're talking with Alan Trim. He is the Vice President of Blue Summit Wealth Management. Their website is bluesummitwealth.com, bluesummitwealth.com. So you've met with your clients, you've kind of developed a financial plan. It's important to stay in touch with your financial planner as life changes, right? Because a lot of things do change and there's things that you need to adjust for over the years. Tell us about some of the changes that might happen.
Great question. So we are in constant communication with our clients and they have access to their accounts online. That's kind of the daily norm. Now, if they're going to get married or have children or start talking about changing their beneficiaries for inheritance, they should be in communication with us. Also, every year we have a very thorough annual review with each client that goes through, what are your goals looking like? Have things changed? Are you making more money? Or do you want to start talking about retirement? We do that constantly with our clients.
If I invest with Blue Summit, do I have to manage my own, look at the statement every month and ask a bunch of questions, or do I get to give it to you and kind of not worry about that?
So there's actually an inverse correlation with how many times a client looks at their statement and performance. And this is usually outside of working with a CFP when someone's doing it themselves. We do manage the whole process. We encourage people to look as often as they feel comfortable to, but we don't expect them to look at it every day, maybe twice a year. But really that's kind of our day job, is to look at those accounts and their progress every day.
We're talking with Alan Trim. He is the Vice President of Blue Summit Wealth Management, and their website is bluesummitwealth.com, bluesummitwealth.com. One more thing, Alan, you said that you do ESG investing.
Right.
What is that?
So there's 2 ways of calling it. Socially responsible investing is kind of the past. Currently, ESG, environmental, social, and governance investing is becoming more mainstream. What that does is 2 things. It screens out negatively companies like tobacco companies, gun companies, perhaps fossil fuel companies, if you don't want to be investing in those. So when you invest your 401k, it often goes into a big pot of money that goes into mutual funds that invest in these things. So a perfect example is the Florida State pension, their example, or their equivalent of CalSTRS, was invested in the gun company that was responsible for the school shooting last February.
Oh.
40,000 shares, and no one knew, right? Because it just goes into this pot of money. So our investments exclude that. What they also do is proactively push proxy voting. So when you're a shareholder of a company, you get to vote on who's in charge of the board. Big decisions for the company. And so they will vote on behalf of our clients, these mutual funds, to push things that we want to push. So for example, if a company is trying to develop a mine in Alaska that might pollute the waters, or we want to have more female representation on a board of directors, they will push these agenda items. So it's a negative screen as well as that positive.
Interesting. We're talking with Alan Trim. He is the Vice President. He's with Blue Summit Wealth Management. Their website is bluesummitwealth.com, bluesummitwealth.com. Thank you for that. So we're going to change our topic a little bit, and now we've talked about planning for marriage, we've talked about investing. Now we're going to be talking about setting up our estate plan so that our wealth goes where we want it to go. And joining us no pressure, is Adam Sherry. He's an estate and trust attorney with Nancy Spector. The law offices of Nancy Spector. Their website is nancyspector.net. So what are some of the reasons why everyone or most people should have an estate plan?
That's a good question, and actually there's a simple and gruesome answer, which may not be a typical fare for your show, but at some point in all of our lives, we're either going to lose the ability to make our own decisions. We refer to that as a loss of capacity, or we are going to lose a finger, Ryan? Is that
Marriage.
We're definitely going to we may get married at some point, but another reason why we all need to be thinking about our estate plan is that, of course, we're all going to pass away at some point. And like your guest mentioned earlier, if you fail to take proactive steps to outline what it is you want to happen, who it is that you want to act on your behalf, there's a default set of laws in place, which in this case is governed by the probate code, that will make these decisions for you. So our goal is to work with clients to help them identify who it is that they would trust to make those decisions for them, what it is that they would like to happen to their assets after they pass away. And then, we come in addition to kind of talking through those issues, by preparing the documents that are legally necessary to make sure that their wishes are carried out after they lose capacity or they pass away.
So there's some legal reasons, legal and tax reasons why we set up estates, right?
Yeah.
The first, obviously, is to avoid probate.
Definitely. So probate is kind of like a four-letter word in our industry, and anybody who's experienced it kind of causes their shoulders to tense up. And so probate, very broadly, is the situation in which the court supervises the transfer of assets after somebody's death. So that means that they determine who it goes to based on the probate code or maybe somebody's will, but they also are intimately involved in the transfer of those assets. And so, our concerns, and that may not sound immediately like a problem, but the issue is that we try to help people avoid is that it's really expensive. It ends up costing, a multiple of what it might cost if you took some steps in advance. We're talking 10 times based on attorney's fees. It's really time consuming. It can easily take 6 months to a year, and it's public too. So the records regarding, what it is that you own when you die, some of the details of your family relationships, those are all then part of the court's records, which are available to anybody who has access to the internet.
That's a big that's a big issue with a lot of people.
It really is, and
Yeah.
so trusts function by you're able to take a step during your lifetime in which you create this document which allows you to circumvent the probate process. And so when I say circumvent, I mean that you are transferring ownership of your assets to a trust, and then at the point that you pass away, the assets don't go anywhere. It's just they remain in the trust, and somebody else steps in. And because you've already identified who it is that you want to step in and what it is that you want to happen with your assets, it's not necessary for the court to supervise that process. So the upside being then it's no longer a public matter. It's significantly faster. And because you're able to do advanced planning, the associated administrative costs, legal fees, et cetera, are all significantly lower.
We're talking with Adam Sherry, who is an estate and trust attorney with the law offices of Nancy Spector. Their website is nancyspector.net, nancyspector.net. So as we talked about with Alan, once you have your estate plan set up, we have to communicate with you on a regular basis, right? Because, for instance, a tax law change just happened in 2018, and that changed things significantly.
That was a big deal. Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. So some good news for some of the people who are watching your show is that generally speaking, a lot of people will make an assumption that their estate will be subject to a tax by the government at the point that they pass away. And so one of the nice pieces of information I get to deliver early in a meeting with a client is that that only applies under certain circumstances. Those circumstances, rather, are when your total estate exceeds a limit that's set by the government. And so previously, that limit was about $5.5 million. So long as you were under $5.5 million, you weren't subject to the estate tax. Now, within the last year, that amount has been doubled. So now we're dealing with anybody who has $11 million or less in their estate can count on not having to deal with estate tax when they die. And so that's had a pretty significant impact on some of the ways that some of our clients plan. And it actually has a bigger effect on a lot of our clients who are well under that amount than the ones who are over it. And the reason is that so I just mentioned a threshold, a limit of $5.5 million and now $11 million. Well, since in 2001, let's say, it was as low as $675,000. So it was really standard for attorneys who were preparing documents at that time to structure trusts in a way that would enable the client to limit their exposure to the estate tax. The downside, of course, was that it increased the amount of administrative work that had to happen. Oftentimes, you're dealing with two trusts after the first spouse passes away. So since 2001, based on the increase in this taxable the taxable estate, since it's so much higher now, that secondary trust isn't available, so isn't necessary for tax purposes. So in a lot of cases, we're amending people's trusts to make it easier after the first spouse passes away.
Yes. We're talking with Adam Sherry. He is an estate and trust attorney with the law offices of Nancy Spector. Their website is nancyspector.net, nancyspector.net. So you've set up a lot of estates for clients over the years. What mistakes have you seen people, not with yours,
Of course not,
but with other ones, maybe of people that, or things that they didn't consider when they did an estate plan with someone else?
Yeah, and so to return to the issue that you just raised, so Alan and the people in Alan's office will get in touch with their clients on at least an annual basis. We deal more in a transactional nature, so we would love it if our clients contacted us every year to touch base and let us know what's happening. But generally speaking, that's not part of our model. And that's because, as I said, we establish documents, and then our clients may need to return to them after a life change. So maybe the circumstances have changed regarding their children, a marital change. They may have separated from their spouse. And so one of the biggest problems that I find is when clients make assumptions regarding what is in their estate plan, or they may have forgotten to contact us after there was a major life change. And so they at the point that the document becomes most necessary, it's no longer a good fit for their lifetime, so for their life circumstances. So really the biggest mistakes that I see are when they fail to get in touch with us on every once in a while. I'm talking every couple of years, to make sure that everything is what they imagine it is. And then the other big one, and this is one of the areas where Alan and I have been able to work together, is where they don't coordinate their estate planning documents with some of the other documents that exist outside of their estate plan.
We're talking with Adam Sherry. He is a trust and estate attorney with the law offices of Nancy Spector. Their website is nancyspector.com, nancyspector.net. So to wrap things up, Alan and Adam, you guys work together. You share mutual clients. Can you tell us about an example of kind of a mutual client and how you work together to achieve their goals?
Yeah, so pretty much any account outside of a retirement account should be in a trust. And Adam did a good job of explaining how terrible probate is and what happens when these accounts are not in the trust. So if we have this annual meeting and we have new clients, if there was 10 things on our list of to-dos, it's to talk about a trust. And if they don't have a trust, we call Adam. And if they do, we say, have you talked to that person, your attorney, recently? It's that important. It's very high up on the list of things that we do. And then, so once we hand it over to a professional, an expert in the field like Adam, then he takes it away from there.
And so what works out really well for both of our clients when we're able to work together is that Alan and I are able to kind of talk behind the scenes. And so, it's great to be able to spend time face to face with your client so you get an understanding about it. But then after they leave the meeting, we're able to touch base, compare notes, and make sure that the things that they told Alan regarding where they want their money to go are reflected in their trust. And then, as Alan identified, these retirement accounts, they're outside of your trust. And so making sure that those beneficiaries are properly aligned are one of the ways that we're really able to benefit our clients by working together.
Yeah.
We just heard from Adam Sherry. He is an estate and trust attorney with the law offices of Nancy Spector. The website is nancyspector.net, nancyspector.net, as well as Alan Trim. He is the vice president of Blue Summit Wealth Management. Their website is bluesummitwealth.com, bluesummitwealth.com. Gentlemen, I want to thank you both for joining us and
you.
complying
Pleasure.
with my blue shirt memo.
Oh,
Way
yeah.
to go on that. Thank you.
Yeah, we're
Thank
three of a
you.
kind here.
Yes, yes. Also want to thank the ladies from San Diego Family Mediation Center. Thank you very much, ladies. And to everybody out there, until next time.